waiting for my internet to finally do its thing and work. So just bear with me for a second. All right, apparently this is actually working. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me for another Technical Tuesday. Hope you are staying cool on this scorcher of a day. It's going to be quite a hot one out there. So hope everyone's staying cool. You're in the shade and hydrated or in air conditioning, which is where I'm sure we would all love to be. I'm in my non-air conditioned barn, hanging out in the coolness here. So today I'm going to talk about a community rather than an architectural style, as we've kind of been talking about for some of our architectural history-based Technical Tuesdays. So I thought change it up. So we'll talk about Rapp Road. In a second, I'll be doing some screen sharing with you guys, showing some photos and some maps and things like that. But before I do that, I figure I'll just give you guys a quick primer on Rapp Road. For those of you who haven't heard of the Rapp Road community, it is also a historic district. They have their own historic district. So Rapp Road is out off of Washington Avenue Extension. I think most people are familiar with the general area, not necessarily the neighborhood itself, but where it is. Obviously, it's accessible from the mall access road and Washington Avenue Extension. But I think most people don't realize that there is a really unique and interesting community that lives there. At the moment, they're kind of at the center of a whole lot of not so fun issues and things with encroachment and inappropriate development, which is something that we see a lot, or I shouldn't say a lot, but that we do see in our downtown neighborhoods. We see that kind of inappropriate development where, you put a huge building next to a little row house, or heaven forbid, surround 40 Hudson with 10-story buildings, make it look like a spite house. But they're dealing with similar issues out there in this rural neighborhood that they really weren't ever anticipating being as built up as it is. So now that we've kind of talked for a second about where it is, actually, let me see if I can pull up my map real quick for you guys. Let me see if I can do a screen share. Again, technology is always not my friend. I want to share my screen with everyone. Okay, there we go. I think all of you can see all of this. We don't need that. Okay, so I'm talking about Rapp Road here between Washington Avenue Extension and over by Gip Road. So during the Great Migration, and for those that aren't familiar with the term Great Migration, from about 1910 to about 1940, there was a large migration of the African-American community from the South to northern cities looking for better lives, higher wages, escape from a lot of the Jim Crow laws, lots and lots of families. So Albany became a hub for the Great Migration. Actually, around the 1930s, Jennifer Lemech over at the New York State Museum did a marvelous National Register nomination for the Rapp Road Historic District, which I'll post a link to so everyone can read it. It's really fascinating. But she did a lot of great research using census data showing that in the 20s and then again, I think the 30s and 40s, you can see that the Albany's African-American community really doubled during those decades. So there was this huge migration into Albany. Rapp Road is one specific community that kind of picked up and moved itself to Albany from Shibuya, Mississippi. Lewis Parsons was the kind of the person that initiated everything. He was a preacher down the South and a railroadman, and he and his wife moved up to Albany in 1927. They liked it. He started a congregation in the South End, and slowly over about 15 years, he was bringing people up to Albany. Actually, at one point, he was even asked to stop bringing more African-American people to Albany. How horrible is that? So he was bringing more and more people in, and they were really kind of amassing a community down in the South End. They're all sharecroppers, farmers. The South End was a pretty big adjustment for what they were used to. So they really weren't happy there. And then, let me see if I find my notes. It was the late 30s, I believe. Or maybe even the early 30s. What did I do with my notes? You don't really need to see that. Well, stop my screen sharing so I can find my notes for a second. In the 30s, in any way, Reverend Parsons and William Tolliver, who was one of the members of the congregation, purchased really 28 acres. They purchased 14 acres of land at one point, and then shortly thereafter purchased another 14 acres of land out by what is now the Rapp Road neighborhood that we know, out by the now mall. And there, then at the time, it was this rural neighborhood that had nothing really. It was the pine bush. So they were able to basically recreate their neighborhood the way it was down in Mississippi. So it was pretty rural, open, wooded, whatnot, farmlands. They recreated that here in Albany on Rapp Road. There were 23 families that initially moved there. Unfortunately, a few of the houses were demolished when Crossgates Commons and a lot of development was happening around Rapp Road and Washington Avenue right there. So not all of them are still there, but there is still a significant portion of the homes that are there. So let me bring up my photographs. Some of the photos that I'm going to be sharing with you guys, they're all from the National Register nomination, whatchamacallit that Miss Lamack did. They're really lovely photos. And it's great. It really shows the style of architecture. So these houses, we kind of refer to them as shotgun style houses. It's a very simple style. They're small, 1.5, sometimes 2-story buildings. Some of them are bungalows, and very simple, nice porches and things that would evoke the South. But the most fascinating part, interesting part, I think, of Rapp Road is that they weren't architect design. I know a lot of buildings we talk about, especially in downtown, they're designed by Philip Hooker, or they're Marcus Reynolds, or they're a Walter Van Geisling house. Even the developers have names. It's a Jesse Leonard house, or it was done by Morse Ryder. These weren't built by builders. They weren't built by developers. They weren't built by architects. They were built by the families that were going to live there. We did a little bit of research at one point and pulled some building permits, and whoever was going to live in that house, that's who was pulling the permit. That's who was doing all of the work. Sometimes their families even slept in small, almost shed-like structures while they were building some of their homes. So this was a community that was totally built by themselves for themselves, which is really unique in Albany. It's actually one of the few communities that we even know of, if the only one in the United States that we know of, where it's a great migration community that wasn't where the neighborhood, they didn't move into another neighborhood. You see a lot, there's certain neighborhoods in Chicago and New York and Boston and areas where people move to and they made it their home. This is one of the few neighborhoods totally created by the Great Migration. No one else was living here. They didn't move into a neighborhood. They made their own neighborhood. So that gives it a little bit more significance, certainly. All right, so we're going to try this whole screen share. I'll go so far as to say nonsense again. All right, let's see if we can see that. Okay, so here's some of the photos from the National Register nomination of some of the homes on Rapp Road. As you can see, they're just lovely, simple little homes. They're family homes. And the majority of them are still there. They're still in the same condition. For the most part, some of them have, as the families have aged, some of the houses have, I know, struggled to be kept up. It's tough when people get older, their homes aren't as kept up, but there's a lot of pride of place here in this neighborhood, and it's really wonderful. So I highly recommend taking a walk down the road, and actually it's perfect for a hot afternoon. There's lots of shade. So maybe for an afternoon or evening stroll, I highly recommend heading over there and taking a walk. It really has a wonderful feel to it. The smokehouse that was constructed for the community is still there, kind of in the heart of the community. It really is it's one of the most cohesive neighborhoods I think I've really seen in Albany, because it's so, I don't want to say even isolated. It's among themselves. Other neighborhoods, just a little bit of bleed. Some neighborhood associations, they cross over with others, and one neighborhood bleeds into the other, and it has the flavor of another. This is truly Rapp Road, and only Rapp Road. This is their community, and you still really feel that out on Rapp Road. So I do highly recommend. Oh, that one's covered in trees. I do highly recommend heading over, just taking a walk and taking a book. I'm also going to share with you. Let me switch over and grab their website, the Rapp Road Historical Association. If you're interested in reading up about it, we're going to post a National Register nomination, and they have a fabulous website for the Rapp Road Historical Association, where they've started collecting oral histories, and families have started telling their stories, much like our We Save Albany stories blog posts that we've been doing. They have a lot lot of that on their website, where they've been sharing wonderful family photos. So let me pull that up just to kind of share a bit of that with all of you. Oh, where am I? Oh no, I think I switched pages. Well, we can go back to that. And I'll post a link as well to the Rapp Road Historical Association website. So we'll post that, and we'll post some photos later as well. So you guys can all see lots more photos. It seems to become a popular thing, as our photo albums that go with it. So we can certainly make that happen. Here we go. Okay, so this is the Rapp Road Historical Association's website. This is their Rapp Road Stories page, and they have lots of really great stories. I really recommend taking a look at it. It's a really fabulous history. It's just wonderful to read. They have such a pride of place that I have not seen as much in Albany. I think sometimes in Albany we have a bit low self-esteem. I don't really know why, but I come across this a lot, where residents just, they don't think their neighborhood's really worth a lot. The residents at Rapp Road are so proud of their neighborhood, and I love that the original families are all still involved in these homes. The majority of them are still owned by the original families. Sometimes they're the grandchildren of the men and women who built them. We know there's a lot of children too who, as their parents have kind of aged out of their home, they're moving in, they're trying to improve things. So it really is a wonderful neighborhood that's really committed to family and their community. And they still hold a great family reunion there every year in August, which I don't think, of course, is happening because of COVID, unfortunately. But they all still get together, and so they're also wonderfully tied together. So I really recommend taking a look at some of their stories and enjoying. It's a wonderful walk. Please take a look. It's a fabulous neighborhood that you guys should really explore. But it's very different from pretty much anywhere else in Albany. There's no other rural neighborhood in Albany where you have that same feel, and it's the same small, very vernacular architecture. It really is something special. So I'll leave you with that. Hopefully all of you can go cool off and enjoy your day. Like I said, go for a walk or have a nice glass of sweet tea while you read some stories. And I will see all of you next week. So thank you so much for joining me, and I will chat with you guys later. Bye.